2025. We're already 3 months into it. Can you believe it? Eh? Time goes so fast. And it kicked off traditionally with UD Trucks Southern Africa. They have a press conference every year. And I found this year's press conference to be very interesting for a number of reasons, which we will be discussing with Mr. Filip van den Heede, who is Managing Director of UD Trucks Southern Africa, who has joined us today, just coming back from a trip of Africa, visiting 5 countries, I think you said, Filip, in Africa, and came back specially for this interview. Well done. Thank you, Filip. And if you believe it, you believe anything, but he's here with us. Filip, I'm going to kick off. It was a good year. You had an upbeat press conference. It was a good press conference. But you mentioned that you were happy with the performance and the customer service and everything you were able to give the market. You said that despite the prevailing industry conditions, you also added to that, despite industry conditions, that it's been a pretty tumultuous year. There's been some outside balls thrown. What's it? Yeah, balls were being thrown at the market. How did you do last year as UD Trucks? Did you meet your plans? And what were some of those outlined prevailing conditions that were challenging to UD Trucks? But firstly, how did you do? Were you happy with last year's performance of UD Trucks?
Overall, Patrick, and thanks for the interview. Overall, we were happy with the results of 2024, even, and I have been repeating myself now in the last 3-4 years, that since COVID, we always felt we are hoping for a more normalized year, and 2024 was another year that it was not really 100% as expected. Still, if we look back at our numbers, it was a good year for us from a total sales point of view and a market share, despite the fact that the total market dropped around 10% to around 30,800 vehicles in the commercial space. We did remarkable well, and we are proud of that we can say that every truck, UD truck that drives around South Africa today is having, or 1 in 2 trucks is having a service agreement, which means that we are reaching 50%. And that is quite reassuring that customers trust in the service offering that we have, are valuing uptime, and hence we are coming out with those numbers. Then specifically, if you look at the market, a little bit of a roller coaster, if I may say it. Of course, it was for South Africa a market with an election year. We were actually imagining that the market would have been a little bit slowing down in the beginning of the year and then picking up after election, second half of the year. But actually, somehow the reality became a little bit different. It was quite strong in the beginning of the year. It went through a dip after the election, and if you look at the medium duty vehicles, that recovered well by the year end, but the extra heavies or the heavy duty vehicles, they had a decline of around over 10% from the previous year, from 23. And it's interesting, it's a decline that we have continued to see already in the first, say, 2 months of the NAMSA figures on the heavy duty. So something to watch. If this is linked to, say, the overall GDP performance of the country, if the extra heavy segment or the heavy duty segment is going to stabilize. My expectation is that in the coming quarter, Q2 of this year, 25, we will see more of a stabilizing, flatter market development. Because then we will be just 1 year after the election of last year.
Filip, just to hang in on that, enlarge on the extra heavy duty segment. That segment saw tremendous growth in the past 2 years, a slowdown last year. But because of the commodities boom was both from an overseas demand and a failure of railways in Southern Africa to be able to deliver the commodities, and a failure of the harbors. So those two combined saw a massive increase in road road transport. A lot of people went out and bought 6x4s linked up with side tippers at the back to get into the commodities market. Then boom, the coal price dropped, and that market suddenly collapsed. Is that, I mean, a lot of people are in that market. The big guys, there was one big company, I won't mention name, they parked off 180 trucks. But the smaller guys, they can't park off trucks, and they got into that segment. How do you see that segment? And you say the sales will drop off, but to me, it looks like there's going to be a chaotic result of that massive influx into that market and then a drop in that market from the SMMEs in particular. They're not going to get the extra work. How do you see that? Is that going to impact on the used truck market? How's it going to impact?
Sure, sure. And I think you have seen this already. The used truck markets already last year started to get an overflow of vehicles. I think that is gradually tapering off, but still we see quite a heavy portion of used vehicles in the market. My view is that this will stabilize, but it's a lot. Of course, South African exports is a lot linked to how China will continue to uptake from coal and other commodities point of view. And there, if you look at the Chinese perspective, it's not a market that is extremely buoyant at the moment. I would even rather call it a flat market. So I think, Patrick, that we will have to be or get used to, whatever you like, to again a little bit lower volumes from an export point of view in the which affect the extra heavies then. Is that a challenge? I do not think so. Partly because, as you remember, 23, you indicated that 23 and 24, actually 23 was an absolute record year from not only from export and booming of the commodities. Export was really going well, and it was also a little bit of a recovery after the slower post-COVID period, 21, 22. So, of course, we all like to have record year after record year, but I would not be unhappy, you could say, if we could stabilize now on the current trend and remain very close to the 24 figures and not continue with the 10-15% drop of figures. That I think would be a more unfortunate, a more meaningful impact. So I don't think it will go to that level.
All right. Yeah, there was one of the trailer manufacturers I spoke to said that the market needs a reset. It was overpopulated. This market is not geared for that many trucks, and that was particularly because of the absence of rail, the failure of rail to deliver. But you mentioned China. I want to just touch on something, Philip. In past press conferences over the years that I've attended many different manufacturers, very often the accent is on the specifications of the new trucks. That's hardly touched on this year. You mentioned China now. What you mentioned in the conference was all the outside influences that are impacting on the trucking industry, but not only on the sales of trucks. What I picked up is that an operator should be expanding his view beyond just the price or his traditional way of purchasing trucks. There's a lot of outside factors that have to take in account. You looked at factors that were there in the year 2000, influencing factors, and then you went to the year 2025. This year now, geopolitical tensions, technological advances in AI, advances in renewable energy, climate change, globalization, economic shifts, and then you went to 2050. It was a fascinating sketch. Now, you left out the specs of the truck, all that. So you're saying there's so much more to buying a truck today that has to be taken into account than just traditional way. Am I right? Did I pick you up right there?
Well, yeah, partly I would say, Patrick. We did mention when we painted the picture of 2050 that a lot has to change. In the same breath, we talked a little bit about the transition from 2000 to 2025, the last 25 years, what has happened in that same breath. And not only on the product side, but also on the services related to the product. A lot has changed in the last 25 years, and we indicated then also in the press conference that we expect massive things to change. We gave the example 25 years ago, telematics was here in a South African context maybe in its infancy stage, purely from the vehicle portion of the telematics, not about the security point, because I believe that South Africa has always been very advanced on the security side of monitoring vehicles and the loads and the drivers. But we for sure see in the space of autonomous vehicles, in the space of, say, the replacement of combustion engines, if that would be hydrogen or battery-driven electrification, then we see, of course, a lot of development, but also we mentioned in the press conference, we talked a lot about AI and how AI will shift and support not only us as manufacturing companies in our development, but also our logistics operators, our customers. And you see this already in some levels of optimization for logistics companies, how to optimize the freight, how to optimize costs in their picture. So there will be massive changes. Crystal ball, as we sometimes talk, not so easy. To what will come out of that. Hence, we indicated that we are betting and putting efforts in different technologies. We mentioned that as a Japanese company, we do a lot of development also on autonomous vehicles, where we have in Kobe Steel Factory now 2 vehicles running in an autonomous environment with no driver, to gain confidence, to gain technology confidence in how to operate this. And as I indicated before, from a Japanese government, there is also initiatives ongoing to let different vehicles, say, on a certain protocol, talk to each other, so that you can have more, if I may simplify it, talk about road trains across different brands to optimize also the space of logistics. Right. But these are, say, very Japanese society-driven developments. We also mentioned a lot that what is happening in South Africa and in Africa, without going into too generic topics, it will take time before all those new developments find a mature space that it's really commercialized. Today, I think we can find a lot of alternative fuel prototypes coming into the market, but it's all on a very, I would call it ad hoc prototype testing phase, not yet in a very commercial viable situation. And I think you know why that is. If you talk about new technologies, you talk easily about a purchase price that is 3 times or more the current price. So I think at the end, everything comes down to cost per kilometer and what, say, the customers and the end customers of our customers can take on. So I think this will have to stabilize without talking about infrastructure, of course. Euro 5 is still a very viable option. Fuel, I would say, that is not a concern. As you remember, Patrick, we've been the first OEM to produce Euro 5 vehicles already in 2019 with our Quon that we started just before the COVID period, actually. So those customers have been driving now for almost 6 years with those vehicles, and fuel quality has not been a concern for the key customers on the key routes. So I would really, if there would be any doubt around that, take that completely away. That is absolutely not a concern. On top, as you know, a lot of fuel gets imported, so it's a matter of buying the quality that is required. I would even put it forwards. Euro 5 vehicles, as we indicated, are fuel-efficient vehicles, more fuel-efficient, newer technology. And even we have the AdBlue technology that we are adding on. But even with the AdBlue, we see the total cost for our customers fuel costs still being more beneficial than running in Euro 3. So I see a space for the two, Patrick.
Okay, because it's been punched over many, many years, and I don't think the government has backed the manufacturers' full efforts in the benefits of Euro 5. But that's for another day. Talking about alternative fuels, we have a new president in America. His name is Donald Trump, and he is talk about upheaval. But his mantra, drill, baby, drill. That I shivered when I heard that because I thought, it's going to take the accents. I think one of the biggest challenges facing the world, and certainly for our grandkids, is our reaction to climate change and how we're going to respond to that. Now, the trucking industry, in my opinion, has led innovation such as Euro 5, now and Euro 7 in Japan. It's a different standard, but it's equivalent to Euro 7. The trucking industry has done an amazing amount in reducing emissions from its products. There's a whole lot of countries that have accented it. But I'm picking up things that if America is not interested in it, why must we do it? Because it's costing billions of rands to clean up emissions. Why must we bother spending that money if America is going back to drill, baby, drill? Um, can the trucking industry afford and can the world afford, in view of climate change, to take the foot off the accelerator on this issue?
Yeah, yeah, I hear what you say, but from a company point of view, we are, as we mentioned before, we are still sticking to our vision of better life. And under that umbrella of better life, we still have, say, our whole product development continuing with the alternative fuels. We are not retracting the Euro 5 offer. We just talked about that, that we see a space next to Euro 3 for Euro 5. We actually also would encourage that to all the players and actors in this space, as well oil industry as the government, to continue to work towards 27, where the Euro 5 emission standard will be introduced, so that we don't get a delay there. So I think the industry is ready as an OEM. We heard very clearly in the NAMSA event in October that the oil industry is also ready to move towards Euro 5, also knowing that a big portion is getting imported. So I think all the building blocks are there. And then coming in general to better life, we continue with our efforts to reduce our impact on climate change and on the impact on climate. To give you an example, we are continuing with our investments to have solar panels here on our factory roof. That we will continue in 25. We know that a lot of our dealers, we indicated that in previous press conferences, have begun through investments in different environmental aspects, from water treatment plants on their sites to electricity, solar panels with batteries. Luckily, the situation around the electricity supply has improved a lot, so I think that has taken a lot of pressure and burden out of the livelihoods of people and the businesses in South Africa. But we will continue on that journey, working with dealers, with our partners, promoting Euro 5, and building a manufacturing base here in South Africa that is, say, having lesser impact.
Yeah, I applaud you. My grandchildren will applaud you as well. I was at the opening, and I'm going to mention it. It's a small industry. Of Scania has opened a new assembly line in Johannesburg, and the ambassador, Swedish ambassador, was there. And he mentioned his grandchild of 3 years old and said, please, manufacturers, do not let up on your green initiatives, because my granddaughter, the planet will not be able to survive for my granddaughter of 3 years old to enjoy it. So I applaud you, fully behind you in that. To get onto a touchy subject, but one that's obviously spoken about throughout the market, the new players in the market, specifically the Chinese players. You've seen the figures. FAW once again led last month with quite amazing sales. And then Sidetrack is coming up from the bottom, but seems to be quite popular. They're beating the traditional players, but it seems to me, speaking to operators, they're beating them on price. The traditional players cannot match the price of the Chinese players. On some 6x4s, you get up to 1.3 million rand cheaper on a 6x4. How do you counter this in a market which, due to the economic conditions, has become price sensitive? I know that in the conference, Rory outlined, spent in great detail, total cost of ownership. How do you? I'm going to say it. I think many operators are wrong for going for price because there's a longer term. Total cost of ownership is the basics of trucking. How do you counter that? How do you counter the price differential?
It's say part of our the different topics that we have discussed. For us, it's not only about the vehicle as such and the initial price of the vehicle, but as you indicate, Patrick, you can call it total cost of ownership, or for the customer, total profit over lifetime. Then you cover really all the aspects of our customers in their operations, not only the initial purchasing price, but also the residual price when the vehicle gets 8 or 10 years, or if it is shorter, depending on the application. And as I indicated, if you put all this together, as well as the cost to run it, the maintenance cost, the service cost related to the vehicles, if you put it all together, we really have a very good value proposition for our customers. We have a strong network with close to 40 dealers now in the country, beyond, say, the other African countries. We have, as I indicated in the beginning, we have 50% of our vehicles that are sold with a service agreement. We are working on extended service intervals, and all this is helping our customers to create uptime for the vehicles. And as indicated, if you think over the lifetime, over a year, for a customer, if he would run over a certain level of profitability, he doesn't need to have too many days or weeks of downtime to feel the pinch in his own operation, looking for alternative vehicles, rental vehicles to. So we strongly believe that we have a good offer with our aftermarket to look at the total profit over lifetime. That is what we strongly believe in. And this goes, of course, for every customer in his application to measure over time what his total profit is over lifetime.
Philip, I was very shocked when I saw the slide. I think it was Rory who put it up, or whatever, at the conference, where you outlined that the operator, obviously in a certain application, which we will be going into detail on, had 1 week to make profit. The rest of the year is cost. So that 1 week downtime eats his 1 year's profit. Is that correct? I was shocked at that. It was amazing. I have an idea.
No, I think the example was given of if an operator would work on 10% profitability over 50 weeks, that's roughly 5 weeks. If you simplify it in this concept, it's 5 weeks that an operator runs profit, and the rest of the year, the other 45 weeks, he runs to recover costs. So if you have 5 weeks in a year, of course, you could say uptime is super crucial. And having a good service network, having parts availability at the dealers, not having to wait for weeks to get your vehicle up and running, all plays an important factor for customers.
So it was 5 weeks, not 1 week. Sorry, did I get that wrong?
Yeah, 5 weeks. But it depends, of course, on the application.
Yeah,
between 5 to 10 weeks. The point was, every week that a vehicle is out of operation has a massive impact on the operating profitability of the customers.
Yeah, your bottom line goes out. Yeah, that was a fascinating thing. We're going to follow up with that. That I was also very interested. 50% in service agreements. That shows that the operators are paying attention to total cost of ownership as well, making sure the vehicles are right. Service agreements obviously take into account residual values, buybacks, etc. And you have had a 50% of your sales, or that is a 50% increase in service agreements?
No, it's 50% of the sales, so it's a remarkable number, actually. And that shows the trust that customers have, and really the whole concept around giving them peace of mind, not only giving them a good value for money when they buy the vehicle, but also giving them peace of mind for the duration of the service agreement, if that is 5 years or 3 years or sometimes even 6 or 7 years, to give them peace of mind that they get looked after throughout that period, even beyond the warranty period, that they know what to expect as a cost. And then when they leave that service agreement contract after 5 years, say, that they also have a very strong position to have a good residual value.
Yes.
Which in some cases still have to be seen if the RVs of all the brands that are around in the market will be seen on the same level.
Yeah. Philip, we could go on all day. I love talking to you. I love listening to you. But I'm gonna end on because you've given us a very good field. I mean, UD Trucks, and congratulations to UD Trucks in Japan, 90 years anniversary this year. Eh? That's a hang of a milestone, and that's 90 years of development. So we get 90 years of R&D and everything from Japan through UD Trucks Southern Africa. What are you scared of going forward? The world is in a bit of a crazy place at the moment. Everyone says the world is, I won't use the word, but you know what I mean. What are you scared of going forward? Local and global influences.
Sure, that's an interesting question. What am I scared of moving forward? No, I'm not really. I'm more of a pragmatic type that looks if there would be any risks to try to see how we can mitigate risks, if that would be a general answer. But yeah, if I would have a couple of aspirations, is that we could see a world with a little bit less wars. I think that would help everybody around the globe, that we can come to other terms, specifically to the trucking. That's exactly what you alluded to, that we don't lose focus on the long-term picture, that we need to deliver, say, transport solutions that are greener for the next generations, and that we should not delay that with delaying emission standards for whatever reason. I think we have delayed now for over 10 years, so I think it's time to put a spade in the ground and say, this is it. Yeah. So that would be my hope, and that we say that can also look into bringing more affordable vehicles in an ecosystem around green energies, that we put the first steps. But I think first, let's start with Euro 5 to get that into the market.
Okay. And Philip, that's your aspirations around less wars and that. And what take out all the mess of the world? What excites you going forward? What do you say, hey, this is good, we've still got this? What excites you going forward?
Actually, what excites me a lot is to continue to build with UD Network a service offering that is really the best in class. We do a lot of initiatives together with our dealers to train people on the floor in the Gemba, as we call it in a Japanese term, from mechanics to all the different functions into the network, to really lift them up in their skills, in their abilities, to be able to support our UD customers to the best we can. And I think that's an exciting journey. It's a never finishing journey, but I think that that excites me. And as you heard me before, I just came back from a trip, so it's not only about South Africa. We see a lot of customers, operators, more and more also expanding to the surrounding countries, neighboring countries, and to really build a uniform network across the African continent. I think that's something to work for and to inspire for.
That is very good. And of course, that also ties in with the Africa Free Trade Agreement that there's a lot of talk about, but I think a full potential hasn't been realized yet. But Filip, I just want to thank you for the time you spent. You rushed back from Africa, especially for this interview. And I want to thank you. And you know, UD Trucks has been around South Africa for a long time. It's been through ups and downs, but it's never deserted. It's not here for a quick buck. It's not here for the short term. It's got roots in Africa, and its roots are getting deeper and deeper in South Africa, and now growing, spreading into Africa. So it's a company we all value, and it's a company that South Africa can be proud to have in on shores. And
As you said.
Filip, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And as a last word, as we are celebrating the 90 years of UD's existence and over 62 years in South Africa,
Yeah.
I think we have a long way to go. So thanks, Patrick.
God bless you, Filip.
Sure.
All strength to you. All strength to you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.